Right, 3, 2, 1. Dan, roll us in, big boy.
What is happening, people? Welcome back to the Archive Podcast. This is episode 9.
Episode 9 of the Archive Podcast. And I'm going to actually make a conscious decision to carry my mic around today because I've listened back to the audio quality and sometimes it's not great. So
Just leave it on the table and sit closer to it, boy.
Yeah,
you can't
but
be moving it around.
I always forget, bro. So I'm just going to keep it here. That's what I'm going to do.
You need to get one of these little army things that I bought.
I know, little army things. Dan describing what's in his t-shirt right now.
What are you on about, bro?
It's little army things.
What are you talking about, bro?
But
talk about your squat.
My lovely, I'm back squatting now, people. I'm back squatting now, people. There we go. Yeah, 200 kilos for sets 4.
He's back.
Don't call it a comeback. Do not call it a comeback. I never left. But how is everyone doing? How are you doing, Dan? This fine Monday morning.
I'm swell, me, mate. How are you?
If you didn't know, right, there's some big news happening. We're going on holiday. We've booked.
We are.
We're going to Barcelona.
And then Malta.
Messi, and then going to Malta then. And then back. What a lovely little round trip. We've got something to look forward to. And on that question, Dan, what are you doing with your training on the lead up to tops off weather?
Well, I was fully committed to embracing the bulk this year because I wasn't expecting to go on any trips. But, you know, this absolute steal of a trip came into my life.
It is an absolute steal as well.
Crazy deal. So it looks like it's going to be a lot of sunbeds and, you know, mini cuts now.
Is it? No, I'm still embracing the bulk, I'll be honest. I'm going to go there, little tubby old boy.
I'll probably just cut Carl's a couple of weeks before.
Fair. I know you mentioned you might make the switch over to flat out hypertrophy because if you didn't know, Dan been riding the old strength bandwagon, haven't you, Dan?
Yeah, me and Joe have been chatting. We've been sharing a little bit of thoughts together, and we've decided to jump on each other's programming.
Yeah, because us coaches need programming too. Not because coaches know what we're doing, but at the same time,
do not disturb a sec.
You get that bit of accountability from the other individual, which is why a lot of people do come to PTs. You get that accountability, you get that easy access of information, because when you have your own training to worry about, you have something called a little confirmation bias, where whatever you do, you feel like is right for you, regardless of the fact that you probably need to be doing something else because you're programming what you enjoy.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest a massive downfall for coaches as well, because if you think about it, the opportunity to be coached by someone else, you know, it begs questions about the program. And if questions coming from a coach to another coach, there's a learning opportunity there. And if you're one of those stubborn coaches that only programs for yourself, you're going to miss out on that learning opportunity.
Yeah, and I think I'd say me and Dan have quite, not contrasting styles because they are very similar, but Dan has trained himself for people that like bodybuilding. He's more clued up on the bodybuilding world than I am, whereas I'm more versed in the strength world. So growing up, all the research, everything that I was enjoyed was strength work. Hence why I've been hitting decent numbers, but I do not look like I lift on times. I've started to change that, but
initially, when I started training, it was just hypertrophy, you know, like those 4 sets of 10. But obviously, after going to university, you develop more of you widen your toolbox a little bit, don't you? Especially if when you delve into the S&C world. Like, I wouldn't say that's where my expertise lie anymore, is hypertrophy. I wouldn't say that my expertise ever lay in hypertrophy, but that's definitely what my main focus was for my own training anyway. So that's where my perspective on hypertrophy comes from. And Joel is just a guy that just, you know, trains brute strength, you know, powerlifting background.
Yeah.
Training in his little dungeon gym with a couple of other lads who also just want to get absolutely ridiculously strong.
Yeah, and I think it was down to the equipment I had. So those that don't know, the playpen has literally got a squat rack, a bench, a deadlift platform, and a T-bar row. That's all it had. So when you've got that sort of equipment, you may as well get big in the big three, squat, bench, dead, train those religiously, variations of those. So deficit dead, sumo pulls, like touch and go bench, pulls bench, slingshot bench, banded bench, squats, front, back, box, overhead. Well, no, never really done any overhead stuff, but it was just getting big and proficient in the big three, and got decent at it. The little crew we had were absolute monsters in their own right. So there would be like some massive numbers thrown. This was from about 15 to 18 before I moved to uni. We'd have like 3 years training. So there's been plenty of people coming in and out, getting strong. And that's one thing I've always been passionate about, is getting people strong. But like Dan said, with the coach in front, you tend to bias towards what you're good at. And my training now still consists of getting strong in the big three. And that's because I really enjoy it. But at the same time, I'm not getting a lot of benefit from it. There's so many areas of my training that I'm lagging and neglect those areas because of my enjoyment when walking to the gym. I want to enjoy what I'm doing. And not that I don't enjoy other stuff, but it's just lazy programming, and I get caught up in a rut of doing the same things. And jumping to Dan has given me a different perspective. So there's a lot of different exercise selection in there, variations, like quite good to what I normally do. I wouldn't do half the stuff I'm doing now previously. So it's always good to try and train some things that you're weak at. One thing I always say is I'm trying to think, try not to butcher it. So it's build your weaknesses while not neglecting your strengths. So
it's like what we said, I can't remember, it was when Chris jumped on, it was just, you just train the training gaps, or whatever area that you think, or that is a agreed area of weakness in you, just develop it.
Yeah, and the way I look at it is, you want to develop your weaknesses, but at the same time, when people do that, they tend to neglect their strengths as well. You're probably where you are because of your strength. So, for example, I've always been really strong in the squat, bench, dead, and that's what's got me through my training at the minute. Doesn't mean I should neglect those completely, but it means that the onus and the focus should be on the other stuff. And it's like in rugby, you have those people that are out and out renowned for, say, jackling, and they're really good over the ball, and that's what's got them to where they are. They're not going to just stop training that and like, oh, I'm good at that now. They'll work on their other weaknesses, but while solidifying their strength. And I think that's one thing that Dan has helped me put in with my training, is not neglecting my strength completely. Because I've always been polar opposites. It'd be like, right, I can't do any of the big three now. I got to work on my weaknesses, and I just like get bored with my training. But Dan's put a nice blend in. So thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You're
Dan.
welcome.
Thank you very much.
Likewise with Joel.
Yeah, he's getting strong. And we'll go to the first listener question then, that this is rolls in quite nicely. Someone asked, I quote, whose deadlift to body weight ratio is better? And I'll let Dan take this one because we'll explain his PB. Go on, Dan.
So just last week I pulled 170 deadlift.
At what body weight?
At the time I was about 64k.
So let's do the math, people.
And for people who, if you want, like, just to justify my body weight, I am only 5'8".
2.7 times body weight deadlift.
That's almost 3 times body weight. What's she like?
My deadlift to body weight ratio is lower than that. I'm at a 2.6 times, and I pulled 102 I pulled 260 at 102.
I'll take that.
But at the same time, people, remember, there is no weight classes in the jungle, and the fastest salmon in the river is still going to get fucked by the bay. So, Dan.
I missed what you said then because you broke up.
Basically, what I said was, there's no weight classes in the jungle, and the fastest salmon in the river is still getting fucked by the bay. So,
fair. Can't argue with that, folks.
Dan has left the chat.
I remember when I was in uni, like obviously there was lots of people quite a decent bit stronger than me, and we all did like some isometric mid-thigh pull testing, and I think I had one of the fastest or one of the highest percentage of my peak force produced in the first 100 milliseconds.
RFD.
Hmm.
But no, fair play. I'm the opposite of Dan. So RFD is the time it takes you to reach peak force and like the rate at which that develops. So a good RFD means that you're really powerful, like you can produce a lot of force very quickly. On the other hand, I pulled for a 7-second isometric mid-thigh pull, and my peak force was still creeping up after 7 seconds.
But that is like, it just goes to show like your powerlifting background is just grindy. Like usually, like me and Joel have been playing with VBT, and like my like velocity cutoff for I don't know, say a squat or something is probably 0.2 something meters per second. About 0.2.
Yeah.
Joe can grind out to 0.1 meters per second.
I know how to strain. I've lived that life.
Like that's quite low.
Yeah,
and I'm not massively experienced with the VBT. I haven't used it with a lot of people.
But when we were doing the VBT testing with bench, so I strapped on the push band, and I've hit a 170 bench like recently, and strapped it on, and I worked at the 150 for a triple, and push band said my estimated 1 rep max was 155, and I've never been so disheartened and scared. It gave me a range, and it was like lower end range was 1 to 6.
Joel benched 180 when he was 16.
17. Well,
17.
yeah, we're not throwing that out there. 16 would be a phenomenal feat. But I think we've chatted a little bit about coaches neglecting learning. So Dan sent me a post last Wednesday, something like that. I don't know why.
Yeah, I took a screenshot of something Jordan Peters tweeted because like I read it and I was like, oh.
For those that don't know who Jordan Peters is, he's the adductor king. He's the absolute like definition of intensity in bodybuilding. He's an absolute mammoth of a bloke.
It's actually quite scary.
Yeah.
He's like the nastiest, meanest looking bloke, and then when you hear him speak, he's like very quiet and really like reserved and like very calm. And I'm like, where when you start training, where does that beast, like where does that demon come from? Like you must
knows how to flip the switch, bro.
Fucking hell, I hate him. I couldn't imagine what he thinks about in them sets, bro. If you've ever seen him train, like
yeah, I feel sorry for his wife.
There's one video on his member site, right, where Corin is putting his belt on before he goes for a Smith's. Like he's got 8 plates aside on a Smith machine, heel elevated Smith machine squat, and people who don't know their like, I'm not gonna say don't know how to train or don't know their training will cock their nose up a Smith machine squat, but 8 plates aside, you can't fucking argue with that, can you? No. You can't look at that and go, yeah, but it's on a Smith machine. If you get under that, it'll fucking crush you.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's putting his belt on. And it's like taking longer than usual, and he's like revving to go. And they have a little argument. And then he just screams at the top of his voice, "Ah, motherfucker!" In the middle of like a full gym. It's fucking quality.
Oh. But that's intensity, and that's what. Like, if your listeners have never really trained to failure, it's probably good every now and then to learn that failure limit. Not
you got to be careful with that. You got to be careful with that level of mental arousal, though, because like that's a fucking stress in itself.
Oh yeah,
just that level of like after you benched 170 the other day.
Oh, hang on, I've done it again. I haven't got my earphones in. Oh, I'll try now.
How did you feel after that?
There we go.
Right, I'll ask him in a second, guys.
Go on.
Basically, I said after you bench 170 the other day, How did you feel after that? Just revving yourself up a bit.
Oh, like, so I think when you set your sights on a target on a given day, you can rev up till that's done. And I was there and I absolutely bashed my head through walls. Do you know, like every set? I missed it first time, but went second time, smashed it. And as soon as I hit it, it felt like I was like a hot air balloon, and they just turned the gas off, and I was just like dropping slowly, and I was just slowly. I went no longer floating on this little cloud, revving it up.
Your teammates in the gulag.
Yeah, I completely died. I was. If any of you have played Warzone, I was in the gulag and I didn't make it out.
No, we had to buy him back.
Yeah, I was
Everyone's going to get those references, bro. Everyone's playing Warzone.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, God. And then I tried. There's 100, like I've shoulder press 100 for 2 before, and I went under to like shoulder press 100, and I had to have it picked up off me like a little child. I was done for.
Done skis.
Yeah, but what we were on the topic of was that tweet by Jordan Peters. So
I've got it up here.
Go on.
I'll butcher it now because. Right, here we go. And I quote, this is a screenshot here. We are in an era of information overload. This is both good and bad. It's good for those that take their time to fully digest information. It's extremely poor for those that feed mostly on oversimplified, easily accessed information. It encourages invalid opinions, built mostly through emotional attachments. There's only one topic in my life that I know I'm a master of, and it's a very narrow field, and it's taken my whole life to form valid opinions. Try your best to consume as much quality information as you can, and take your time before you start forming opinions. Sit on the fence and learn, and learn and learn and learn. Play devil's advocate with yourself constantly, and be ready to bin any opinions at any given moment, and start over.
So, what I've taken from that is there's so much information out there at the minute, and that comes through social media.
Yeah, like the big one in there is the social media one.
Yeah, and we've chatted about it before on the podcast when we listed a bunch of people that you should follow for relevant fitness information. But the problem is those relevant fitness professionals out there that post good, informative content are outnumbered 10 to the dozen. Like, there's so many people out there that just post absolute shite on social media.
Yeah.
And I think the shite feeds off shite as well. It's like a little parasite. So some people will put something up and then it'll like spread like wildfire.
Like a snowball effect of like
and
bollocks.
Yeah, and it's just like with it, as like we'll call ourselves fitness professionals, we're not nowhere near the standard that there are people out there, but we have to try and dispel the bullshit of social media and stuff, because people get emotionally attached to a certain individual. Like we chatted about it in the Supplements podcast. When you see your favorite influencer go and buy a supplement, you automatically think, "Oh God, let's go buy a supplement."
You're interested in you.
Yeah, and I think there's so much of that going around on social media that it is hard to try and dispel all of it because people have their own emotional attachment. So whether that be good or bad to their like favorite influencer, who might be educational or not, might not be. So that's the thing that I've got from that, is that social media is prevalent and it's hard not to take information from there because of the amount of information there is to be consumed. So
and
with that being said, sorry to interrupt, Dan has brought up something called the Dunning-Kruger effect.
We have chatted about it before. We have brought it up before.
I get a little graph up now that represents.
While Joel does that, I'll weigh in my opinions on it.
Yeah, go on.
If you are on social media and you get the majority of your information off social media, you need to have some sort of critical appraisal when it comes to forming opinions, and then recycling that information to other people. You can't just read an Instagram post and then read a few other Instagram posts to kind of back up that Instagram post, and then that is your opinion. Use use it in practice, get anecdotal experience with these like sort of, information, this information, and then form opinions, and then, but don't let that create like an ultimate bias around that particular area, because ultimately that's going to limit your horizons in regards to your learning, because you have developed a bias too early, and it's going to be so hard for you to get out of that sort of, you're going to be a stubborn individual when it comes to taking on information from other people. And what I find is like a lot of new people in the field, I'm not, a veteran. I've already just like, I finished, graduated my degree just over a year ago. And, you see, but just by working in the personal training field, you see these people, and you see where these people sit on this Dunning-Kruger effect that Joel's about to show you. Like, if you show, I can go into a bit more detail on what I'm going to talk about. So
this is the graph. So
you've got the time scale at the bottom, and basically you've got confidence at the top, and then you've got competence at the bottom. The bottom is the time scale as well. So let's put that graphic up again, just so people can see. So if you see the top peak, the Mount Stupid, those who are on Spotify and Apple, you're just going to have to visualize this, or Google the Dunning-Kruger effect and listen along. The peak of Mount Stupid, I would say, was people just coming out of education or just finishing qualifications. And then basically confidence is high. You've just finished a qualification. You think you know everything. That will quickly dissipate pretty rapidly. You see that peak drop really quickly. Then you're in the valley of despair, where you feel like basically, Jesus Christ, I know absolutely zilch. And then it's that slow creep up in confidence over time, where you pick up new information, form new opinions and stuff. So it's just about figuring out where you sit in this Dunning-Kruger effect, and then, just going off that.
Yeah, and I think when you do come out of education, you're in that thing, you've learned, like, you've got a degree or you've got your personal training qualification. What else is it to know? You know what I mean? You're there. And then
I'll always go on. I said I'll always sit in that valley of despair, because if you obviously confidence, you want that high, but if you feel like there's ever a point where you feel like, I'm good with the information I've got,
you're never told to stop learning.
Rubbish.
And I think with confidence, it can go in two different ways. So there's confidence, like I'm confident in my ability to take someone, train them up, provide a program, provide a premium service to that client. But what I'm not confident in is the fact there's so much shit out there that I haven't scratched the surface on. So I've only recently started delving deep into hypertrophy, and I'm like, there is so much that goes into the nuances of training for hypertrophic adaptation rather than neural force production stuff. And I'm only scratching the surface on that. Now, would I be confident to take a client, provide them with a hypertrophy plan? Yeah. But at the same time, I know for a fact that there's so much that goes into everything that I'm like, God, I'm just scratching the surface. And I think there's too many people out there that sit on that peak amount stupid. And I've been there when I first started training and I was getting stronger. And it's that whole, well, I'm getting stronger. I know how to get other people stronger. That's just N equals 1. And for what people don't know what that means is that something that works for you might not work for everyone.
No.
And the majority of the time, you are where you are in your training. So you're where you are in spite of your training, not because of it. And there's so many people that you could, like genetically gifted people could literally do anything and they'd still experience progress at a faster rate than 99% of people, because that's the way their genetics are made up. And when you're stuck in that rut of peak amount stupid, and you're right at the top, you're sitting on the mountain, I know everything, I've just finished my degree, I've got strong, I've got 1 or 2 people strong, I know how to get strong. There's so much around the corner that's it's like getting hit by a steam train, and you're like, oh God,
It's
right.
quite
And
disheartening as well.
yeah, and
It,
that's where
like,
that information overload comes in. And I think at that point, people don't realize how much information there is out there until they've fallen off peak amount stupid. And then that's when the information overload comes in. And then you can go two ways about it. You can be the one that backs your own confirmation bias. So you've seen an article, for example, say on keto, and you're like, oh, I read this one article on keto diet is the magic tool for fat loss. And then you type in on Google, keto diet weight loss benefits. You're going to see a bunch of things on why keto is beneficial for weight loss because that's what you've typed in. There's articles and there's studies to back up whatever you want. You can cherry pick your own evidence to match your bias because there's so much of it out there. And what you need to do is be critically appraisal, is it? Did you say?
have some critical appraisal, so be
Yeah,
critical of information.
have some critical appraisal. And I know we're going to mention him again. Heard Strong. Jez put a good post up on how to break down the research and how to use the research in your favor to be critical, but at the same time not be over reliant on the research, because
We do want to get Jez on at some point, but he's got a bit on at the moment. So before, like, obviously he's not here to discuss it.
yeah. So basically, his post said that.
I just want to touch on the 3 pillars that he talked about.
Yeah. So his post was on how to look at research, how to be critical, take the things that you need from there, and then at the same time explain that sometimes practice-based evidence is way in front of evidence-based practice. You know what I mean? Because
But
people
the
are out there.
evidence should inform your practice to some extent.
But at the same time, the evidence is a perfect place to start. So the evidence out there works for the majority of people. It's been tried and tested on groups of people. You know it works. But at the same time, there's a lot of practitioners in the field that are very advanced, that are trying their own nuances and things at training that the research hasn't caught up to yet. And at the same time, just because there's no research to back up their point yet, doesn't mean that it should be thrown to the wayside and neglected completely. If a lot of the time professionals in the field have been getting results with that and they're just waiting for some research that to come out that backs their theory up. And a lot of the times that's what happens. Bodybuilding, for example, there's so many things that have been tried and tested in bodybuilding before the research that had come out. And I think a lot of people can get dismissive after they've fallen off that peak amount stupid. Well, if there's no evidence to back my claim, I'm not gonna do it. When in reality, it could work, but it's just not been. It's been proven in the field, but not in the evidence.
It's like it's all about that blend between science and practice. Like, I'll talk about it. Like, if you go back to like the early day, I remember Ian Jeffries was talking about this in the last talk that I went. Basically, the NSCA was the National Strength Coaches Association, but there was effectively such an emphasis on, there's so much science and like all this new information that it kind of like lost its touch with the coaching element and the practice element, and it became more of like we became more like strength scientists rather than, we too evidence orientated, we too, coaches are becoming bookworms, and like there's not enough practice to actually apply the correct sort of practices.
Yeah, and I've started reading Conscious Coaching by Brett Bartholomew, and it is that element of being a conscious coach, which means that you understand the research, you understand the science behind the application of what you're doing, but at the same time, you understand people, you understand the relationship aspect that you need to build with your athletes, and you understand the fact that a lot of the times that you're going to have to modify your coaching philosophies to get buy-in from athletes, because at the end of the day, we're not robots. And if you give us the perfect science-based plan, a lot of the times the practical application of that is flawed.
Yeah.
So you've got to take the knowledge that you gain with a pinch of salt and put that practical element. And I think that's why with the Dunning-Kruger effect, it's got competence across the bottom. And like you said about time, it takes 10,000 hours to master a skill, that whole thing. And the longer you spend in the field, the more clients you get, the more you read, the more you practically apply things, the further along that curve you get, and you get out of that peak of Mount Stupid, you're down at the Valley of Despair, and you're like, that's when the real learning starts, and you realize that, oh, no, I actually know a lot more than I do, but there's still so much more to learn. And once you get to that point, that's when your coaching, I feel like, is probably going to be best off.
Yeah.
You're not hard cutting, this is what we need to do, this is what I've read, this is why we're doing it. You understand that there's a practical element to coaching, and there's a practical element that you need to base the science off to make sure that you do get results. And
Just because of the extent of information out there, you like people who are in the field need to remember that we are coaches first. And yes, science should back up our rationale behind our decision making in our coaching. However, it shouldn't be the be all and end all of our programming, because there's so much conflicting evidence out there. You could have the most scientifically sound program, but you can't apply that. Like if you can't coach it, you can't apply that program, and it's not a good program.
No, the best program is the ones that your athletes buy into, enjoy, and get results from.
Like we said with the exercise selection chat. Did I say that right? Exercise selection chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a bit of a brain fart then. Like we said in the exercise selection chat that we had. Principles over methods. Don't just get stuck in that one-eyed view where, one exercise is better than the other because the science tells you so. The science tells you so. Like Joel did some research on back squatting, high bar and low bar in its relation to scrummaging performance. To develop somebody's scrummaging performance, or to translate strength across that pillar of performance, that scrummaging skill and strength in scrummaging. Oh, you've got a high bar squat. The reality is you're not going to be able to enforce that across every single population you work with from that one bit of research that you did. The anecdotal experience of you having those interpersonal relationships with those athletes is going to tell you a lot more. So you might get 10 out of 20 athletes that will buy into that. You'll be like, yeah, I'll high bar squat. Then you might get 10 athletes that go, nah, I really don't like high bar squatting. I'd rather low bar squat, or I'd rather trap bar deadlift. And are you really in a position to argue with that particular athlete if they are not going to get a lot out of it? No. You are a coach first.
Yeah, I think that's where it comes into the whole research should look like to form a foundation point. So you want to go in and that high bar squatting is better than low bar squatting, for example, for scrum performance. So you go in and then you say, right, today's agenda, A1, high bar squats, 5 sets of 4. And then you do the session and people are like, oh, I don't really get on with high bar squatting. And you're like, why? You have a chat and they'll be like, well, I've had some knee pain previously. Like, I really struggle with ankle mobility. My high bar squat looks like shit. And you'd be like, right, all right. It might not be optimal in the literature for them to low bar squat, for example, but optimal for them is going to look a lot different for someone else because of those other individual factors. And I think too many people get caught up on the science when there's so many individual factors that come into play. And that's why I wanted to touch a little bit on individualization with programming. So you've seen it all the time. Oh, you shouldn't buy into cookie cutter programs. Now, yeah, agreed. There are some cookie cutter programs out there that are complete dog shit. They just, there's no science behind them. There's no back into it. But at the same time, if I was to give a cookie cutter program to someone, how much individualization does that one person need for that program to be specific to them, do you think?
Probably not as much as you think.
So one thing that I've realized is that if you program a principle, not a method, then the individualization comes in itself sometimes, I feel. So if you were to give 5 athletes the same program and they're all at different ends of the spectrum, one's completely fast twitch, one's really slow twitch, one's in the middle, is a blend of all 5. You could give those the same program, and the changes that you need to make for that program to be optimal for them are very subtle. People look at a program, and I think because of everyone's on about this program's completely individualized for you, they want a complete different program. So
They
10
want it to
people
look
want,
completely different.
yeah, 10 people want like 100%, nothing's the same program to program. But in reality, the principles are the same for getting stronger. So the programs on paper should look pretty much similar.
The principles don't change from person to person, so why should the program?
Yeah. So what do you think needs to come into play for a program to be individualized things? What things do you look at on a program and be like, right, this needs to change for that? You know what I mean?
I don't know. For
Like
example,
right, better first question. What variables do you think need to be considered to change from person to person?
that's my dog barking. Shush. Sorry, guys. We'll have to cut this out. Right, the things that differ is probably just reps, sets, reps. You could the warm up could differ for someone. So the only real difference is in like you should have like programming should have a structure, but a very loose structure.
Yeah.
So you should have like A to E or A to C, and you might have, your different movement patterns or different extremities to train. That's going to then differ again from athlete to athlete. So movement choice would change. Reps could change for that particular person. So if somebody's a little bit more type 2, you probably program, some higher load in there to get them more force output out of them, get them a bit stronger. Somebody's more, brute strength and lat has got deficits in like power, program something across the strength continuum a little bit differently. Mobility differences, so somebody might have restricted ankle mobility that stops them getting into a decent squat position, or somebody might have some shoulder issues or some shoulder dysfunction or instability. You'd program things to accommodate that in the warm-up or something else, and those would be the differentiating factors in the program.
Yeah, and I think for me, the principles stay the same, the methods change. So exercise selection might differ. So you chatted about that if you can't get into a nice squat, we're not going to force you to squat just because it's a little bit better than, say, the trap bar. And then sets and reps, if you're completely fast twitch, you're probably going to do a little bit less volume than the guy who's slow twitch. So slow twitch guys can handle a bit more. The endurance is a little bit higher. They need a bit more work to get a train adaptation, whereas fast twitch guys can get away with doing a little bit less. So that means that usually the genetic freaks out there have to do less to get better at a quicker rate than the guys who are not so genetically gifted. They're going to put more work in to get less results, which is sad, especially in team sports, because you always tend to look up to the guy that's, the best in the field. So, for example, if you're in a rugby team, you look at that one guy that's playing really well and you kind of want to emulate what he's doing. In reality, you probably need to be doing something different to him, and he's where he is in spite of his training, not because of it. Then, yeah, that's probably the only things that change. You might change one or two accessories based on your role or your outcome goal. So positions might change accessories slightly. If your sport might change accessories slightly. But in the grand scheme of things, that program is never set in stone anyway. So if
No.
you get a program from someone and there's no change from week 1 to week 4, even though you might not like a couple of things, some things don't work for you, that's not the program for you. And
You need to be adaptable.
Yeah, and there's sometimes that you get a program, things work 100%, and you're like, right, carry on, let's ride this wave, you know what I mean? But then there should always be that input or back and forth, whether that's with yourself, like, am I really getting the best out of this now? And you need to ask yourself, sit down, be critical of your own approach to things. So sit down, is this actually working for me, or could it be better? And then if that's with a coach, even better, because you get a two-way approach to it and you haven't got your own bias, like, yeah, this is really good for me. I'm back squatting 4 times a week. I really like back squats. So yeah, just be critical and don't think that you are everyone is the whole snowflake thing in it. Like, you are unique in your own way and you have those differences that need to take into account. For example, you a year from now is not going to be the same person genetically. There's going to be different things that come into play. Trainability's gone up. There's so many things that you need to come into. And then the same thing as you're not completely the same as the person sat opposite me. So me and Dan are two different people, but the individual differences that you need to make usually come with bouts of training experience. So you know what's good for you at a certain point. So I know for a fact I can't really recover well from heavy squats. It takes me ages to recover. So I'm not going to program myself 4 heavy squats a week because I'm just not going to recover. At the same time, I know my weightlifting needs a lot more frequency because my technique gets quite rusty quite quickly. So I need to keep greasing that groove with technique. I know for a fact that I don't really like and I can't tolerate high volume leg stuff because I just turn into an absolute Bambi. But that's probably a weakness of mine that I should look to try and improve, is just handling more
Tolerance to volume.
Yeah. And I think too many people come with this connotation that bulk programming is bad. And bulk programming is only bad if there's no adjustments made to it throughout, because it sets the perfect starting point for you as a beginner, and then your individual differences will come into play then throughout that program, not at the start, unless you've been working with a coach for quite a while.
It's all about, like, when you say cookie cutter program, if there's a cookie cutter program with adjustments and, assessments, and you've got that input, that coach's input in there, stop moaning.
Yeah.
That is it. If you've just bought a program of this online trainer and there's no check-in there's
my 28-day booty blast.
Yeah, there's no check-in process. There's no, progress assessment or anything like that. Yeah, start bitching, but
Yeah.
well, just don't waste your money in the first place.
Yeah, if there's room for individualization within that program, it might only be as subtle as you doing 5 less sets a week than the other person, and your exercise are changing.
Buy into a coach, not a plan.
Yeah. And
because ultimately that's what you're doing. You're buying into the coach's knowledge, and the plan doesn't necessarily dictate that coach's knowledge. Whereas, like, if you're buying a plan from somebody who doesn't check in and doesn't assess progress, you are strictly buying that plan. You've just got that plan. You've got That program, you've got those sets, those reps. That is it. You haven't got those conversations in check-ins. You haven't got that adjustments. You haven't got you haven't got that loose structure. You've just got complete program rigidity. You've got to follow that regardless of anything else.
And no program should ever be 100% rigid. I don't think that's the be all and end all of it, really. There's going to be so many things that come into play, adjustments that need to be made. So probably your best bet is to buy into a coach. Because I know my clients get quite pissed off with me sometimes because they're like, well, you've written a program and then we're doing stuff different to the program. And I'm like, yes, I know, for good reason, because I've seen something that needs to be changed. And that's I hate writing programs. It's so annoying because I know for a fact I'll write like a really nice looking program. Within 2 sessions is going to be ruined because I'm making adjustments there and then on the fly. And it looks, when you give out a program, it needs to be all neat.
Looks a bit sporadic, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then I'm like, oh God, I've made all these changes again. But
as long as it follows the same principle. The thing is, like, what gets me is, like, if I've been coaching a client and their program after 4 weeks looks the same as the program from the last block, they'd be like, the program's the same. I'm like, yeah, you're progressing. Why would I change it?
Yeah.
And they're like,
boom. They're like, oh God, I can't think now.
Yeah, but I want something new. It's like, I get it. You're paying for something, But if you're progressing, like, I could just leave you with this. I could leave you with this program and not check in with you, and that'd be fine.
Yeah. So
you're paying for my expertise.
Buy into a coach, not a plan. And if you haven't got a coach, buy into critical thinking, because that's going to get you a lot better than being stuck with,
exactly.
Oh, yeah, I done this program when I was 12 and my bench increased by £100. Yeah, because you had a surge of hormones, you grew. Like that same, it's usually the same plan that got you to say squatting 400 isn't going to be the plan that gets you to squatting 500. That's the be all and end all of it. And I think that's quite a nice point to wrap up on. But
the honeymoon
I know
stage
for a
now.
fact, yeah, I wanted to touch on the fact that someone has squatted £500 and ran a 5-minute mile. I know we touched on this on probably like the second or third episode. The question
ran
was,
a 5-minute mile, then squatted £500.
Yeah, or run a, or
4 minutes 56. 4 minutes 56 seconds mile.
Yeah, the question we had was squat 500, run 5-minute mile in the same day, or squat 500 and do an Ironman. What's more impressive? And I categorically said, hands down, 5-minute mile, £500 squat. And today it has actually been done by we're going to give him some creds on the podcast.
Do you reckon he watched the podcast and was like, I'm going to try that?
Yeah, we want to grow his following because, as you know, we've got quite an influential reach. Adam Klink from CrossFit Krypton. And yeah, so he done it on the 12th of July, which was yesterday, a 4:56 mile. Now, for the listeners out there, I would like you to go and try and just try and run your quickest mile. So I know my quickest mile is north of 6 minutes. Like, I'm not getting below 6 minutes anytime soon. Dan's never ran in his life, so...
Yeah, I have.
So, let's put that into perspective. So, go out, run your quickest mile, and let us know how you get on. If you are anywhere south of 6 and you're in that 5 category, you are quite a good runner. Like quite a good runner. But then, if you're that person that's in that 5-minute mile time, go to the gym and try and squat £500. That is 227.5 kilos. The people that run 5-minute miles are not the people that squat £500. They're two different people. They're not the guy in the pic. And then I'm just a bit baffled by it. Fair play. That is, I'm going to put that down there. That is the greatest feat of athleticism 2020 will see. And it's not going to get the recognition it deserves either, which is quite sad.
Well, it will now because it's been discussed on the poddy.
Yeah, this we're gonna have a clip of our faces. We're gonna be on ESPN because the podcast going global. But yeah, £500. Like I was actually debating doing something like a 6-minute mile and a £600 squat, because I know for a fact I could probably squat 500 and run a 5-minute mile if I had 2 years of training dedicated to getting my mile time better. But to be honest, that's not me, Chief. I can't be bothered for that. But
No.
a 6-minute
Wasn't
mile
a
and a
half
600.
marathon enough for you?
See, the half marathon wasn't that hard in comparison, because you're doing an endurance event, which doesn't require that high power output. Whereas if you was to run a 6-minute mile and squat 600, that would be something I'm interested in.
Well, the systemic fatigue that you'd get from doing that.
Yeah. So what's it?
Recovering from that is a feat in itself.
So 272 is £600 squat, I think. I'm on the 260 at the minute. Who knows? But yeah, I'm not putting that out there. That's just me throwing my devilish ambition into the mix. But right, wrapping up, Dan, you had a listener question.
Basically, so look, why is higher intensity, so higher RP, lower volume, higher frequency better for hypertrophy? Effectively, higher frequency is good for hypertrophy. I won't say it's better for hypertrophy because there is no best. I would say I'm in no position to say there is a best and there isn't. But higher frequency, if you look across the training week, you get more adaptations. You get more opportunities to grow. Higher intensity, higher RP, more motor unit recruitment equals more tissue damage. There's more stimulus for adaptation there, so more stimulus for growth. That's it.
But at the same time, some people might not get on with higher intensity. They might
you just
require that.
If you're training at that level of intensity, you need to be careful of volume. You can't be doing 5 sets per exercise because you will never recover from it.
No, you'll get battered, and that's why
you'll just be constantly in a deficit of
and that's why you don't grow so much from strength work, is because you're not working to that failure point, that RIR. The reason why you can recover from so many deadlift sets at submaximal weight is because it's submaximal. So if you think you've gone from strength, where you're doing, say, 5 sets of 5, typical strength stuff, you're doing 5 sets of 5, submaximal, and then you go into doing a bodybuilding style split, and you're like, well, I used to be able to handle 5 sets on squats, and then you jump into 5 sets to failure at monstrous weight. You wake up the next day and you can say goodbye to the rest of your training week because you're going to be absolutely categorically dead.
RIP.
Not RP.
Yeah. RIP.
Right. So, Dan, you've got energy drink review, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been sipping it, if you haven't noticed, across the podcast. Yeah, this. I picked it up yesterday because somebody said to Joe, where's energy drink review? So I saw it yesterday. The thing is, the selection of energy drinks in shops is quite sparse. It ain't great, is it?
No.
No, in the UK, we've got rubbish energy drinks anyway.
Hang on. For the listeners, you'll be happy to know we've had the tip off that it is a wonderful spot for all things energy in Blackwood. Up the J-bomb. If he watches, he'll know. But we are going to make a trip there at some point and gather some luscious energy drinks for the review so we can keep you covered.
I'm going to order a big crate of 3D off Insight Subs, I think.
Fair. So, Dan, give us a rundown. Give us the rundown.
Right. Yellow can, aesthetically pleasing. Just tipped it all over myself. Let's get into the taste. You're not going to hear a crack because I've already sipped it. I'll be honest, don't like it. No. It tastes like mango passion fruit initially, and then just has a minging soda watery taste. If you ever had do you know what it tastes like? If you ever had Diora Light when you hangover,
it can't be that bad.
It kind of has that aftertaste. It ain't that bad. It has that taste. Caffeine content is shite. 32 milligrams per 100 ml, which is average, but it's a 250 ml can. And
That ain't even
calories to caffeine ratio, it's 90 milligrams of caffeine.
Yeah, not even 100.
Not even 100 milligrams of caffeine, so an espresso probably has more. And it has 30 grams of carbs per can. All in all, tasty if you like a skater goth.
I tell you
But
what,
no, if you that's a nice little round off of the podcast today. No offense if you're a goth, or if your name's Kyle.
I tell you what though, that does go well with vodka.
Yeah, I can imagine it does. Yeah,
not condoning the use of alcohol on the podcast because we are fitness professionals at the end of the day, and I don't drink. But rather than an energy drink review, I thought I will do a cocktail of the weekend review. So I recently dabbled in a. I want to call it a cocktail. It was a Pessoa lemonade drink, but then to make it a cocktail, I added a little bit of gin in it. And hands down, categorically, Pessoa is one of the nicest drinks I've had. So on that front, fitness ability is 0 out of 10 because of the fact that it's alcohol, which is going to ruin recovery. But there's calories in it, which is also not ideal. But at the same time, Slimline lemonade bumped the fitness ability up to a 2. So we're sitting in that nice range. Then
was it a gin? Hang on, was it a gin or was it a gin liqueur? Because there's a big difference there.
No, so it was a gin, and then it was a lemon sherbet gin, I think, with
so a liqueur.
Is it? Is that?
So like the sherbety, like violet gin and all those, they're liqueurs, yeah. So they have like little syrups in it and stuff. Oh, so it's not just the alcohol. So the fitness ability goes down.
Back down.
If it was just gin, it'd go up.
-1. But the Pessoa was like absolutely unreal. Tasted out this world. So that's like tastes like a porn star martini. And as you know, that's like probably like third on my list of cocktails. We got espresso martini and then a whiskey sour.
The absolute worst cocktail is a Long Island iced tea. Don't at me. No, they are horrible. If you drink them, you need to be sectioned. I'm sorry to tell you.
I'm trying to think what. I will find the name of this one cocktail that I had. It was absolutely disgusting. Negroni. Ever had one of those?
Yeah. Aperol.
It is absolutely
tastes like
disgusting.
Shit.
So yeah, no chance. But yeah, I've got an also energy drink, coffee, 10 out of 10 as usual because
the nature's energy drink.
But yeah, that is episode 9 of the Archive podcast. Right. Are we going to do something big for episode 10?
Yeah, fancy dress.
Yeah, should we do a fancy dress?
Sure. That was a joke, but yeah. Or should we just wear pajamas or something? I don't know. As you can see, my creativity isn't very high.
Yeah, we're stuck in lockdown, so
I'll dress as Joe. I'll dress up as Joel, and Joel will dress up as me.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll do the.
You'll have to go on a massive mini cut. Literally,
I just won't eat for a month.
Lose 50 kilos.
Oh, but thanks all for tuning in.
Joel said that he was going to hold the mic through the whole podcast, and he didn't.
No, I've picked it up at certain points when I moved further away, and I left it there. I did come in because I've noticed a lot of times I like start talking, and I'll be like, yeah.
There's no in between. Like I've started to like. My mic etiquette is getting a little bit better since I've got this thing. So I just keep it there. But you were either right over here or like something people.
Yeah.
These mics are not great though.
No, we are looking to invest. So when all this restriction stuff's lifted, we might do a home podcast.
Yeah, so we're not going to be on Zoom anymore. We don't have to posh about this Zoom shit. We just sit next to each other, have a nice little conversation.
Yeah, but thanks all for tuning in. I've been joelharris.pt.
I'm Dan Evans PT, if you didn't know by now. You've watched us for 9 weeks. If you don't know that by now, just
Yeah.
leave.
But what we will say is the breakdown didn't go out last week. We couldn't find a time to both fit.
We couldn't fit in our busy schedules together.
Yeah, so it will be happening this week. So get your questions in for that on the Instagram.
Get some questions in from last week's episode as well.
Yeah, apart from that, enjoy the rest of your week. And thanks for listening to the Archive Podcast.
Happy.